This time round, nothing fancy, no big studio lights. Today we're doing product shoot with speed lights. Coming up next. So, slightly different format today. Normally what I do is I shoot in the studio with my big studio flashes, either the ones that plug into the wall or the ones that are chargeable, like the ones that I have here. But not everybody has access to or the space to have larger lights. So what about if you've only got speed lights? Well, that's what we're doing today. Speed lights are these little small, flexible, portable lights. They're not necessarily always cheap. You can buy cheaper brands. I remember buying this years ago, probably 10 years ago now, the SB900, the Nikon. Probably not even available anymore, but it is a powerful light. It did cost a lot of money back in the day, but it has, in some cases, I'm able to do small studio stuff with just the speed light without the need for these lights. And that's what we're going to do today. And unlike the other types of lights that you can get, big ones, large ones, these ones are simply powered by normal AA batteries that you can recharge and use and take around with you. So the great thing about this is you can go out on a shoot anywhere, whether it's in a forest or in the city or in your home studio. You just charge up your batteries and then you're ready to go. You can take these anywhere and shoot. So today I'm shooting something called a Yoto player. Nothing sponsored, of course. This is from my home, but I thought it's a nice product to shoot. It's got nice matte features, quite nice and clean. And the idea behind these, of course, is that these are audiobooks for children using cards that go in here. And the idea being that it is a screenless technology, so you're taking the children away from the screen, but activating their imagination thanks to audio books. Again, we're shooting with speed lights, and let me look at the setup. The setup today, we'll start with the camera on a tripod, hand release mechanism that will let me fire the shot. And I've got a trigger which is connected to the hot shoe, which will then fire the two flash that I have. And of course I've got a stand with a special octabox built for speed lights, to which I've got a trigger sitting on the stand, which is connected in the hot shoe to the speed light. On the soft box, of which I have two, and then I have the product on the table here. Let's switch on the speed light. Then of course I've got the seamless paper that I've rolled down. The way I'm going to do this now is two speed lights, one on either side, equidistant from the product. And as you can see from here, it is just above the table level. Right, so we're all set up. Now that we've got the camera in place, the tripod, the triggers, the flashlights, the soft boxes, the product, and the seamless paper, it's now time to use a grey card. The alternative to a grey card is of course having one of these, but today we're going to use a simple grey card because not everyone's got one of these. I find that these particular ones work quite well. Switch on the light meter. So in terms of setting up the camera, we want the white balance to be on flash. We want the ISO to be on 100. We want the speed of the camera, the shutter speed, 125. And from there we can try and figure out what the power is coming out from the boxes. And that gives me an aperture of 7.0. Then of course I'll get my grey card and let's get an accurate white balance, like so. And let's see what we've got. A negative space below and above the product, and to the sides it's all centered in the middle, so let's try. Okay, got a nice angle on that, nice sort of side lighting. I have forgotten one thing though, and that is the audiobook itself. I forgot the audiobook itself, the card that needs to go in the slot. There's quite a lot of reflection off the actual card itself, I think direct light. Looking at the histogram, I can see that obviously it's on the brighter side of things, which is the way I like to shoot. Although it does decrease the contrast, so let's try. Okay, so the pictures are on the light, the photos are slightly on the light side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase my aperture one stop to f8, just to darken it down a little bit and see if I can get a bit more contrast. Yep, that's looking much nicer. It's subtle. So what we've got now is I increased the aperture a little bit just to make it slightly darker on the histogram to see if I can resolve some of that issue with the reflective card. It didn't do the whole job, so instead I'm going to see if I can somehow flag the light just in that particular area. I might have to Photoshop the two images together, but let's try that. Try that to see how we do. Oh yes, that's given a nice contrast. Let me try that one more time, just slightly less back. Yep, I think that's increased the contrast considerably and resulted in a much nicer image on that side. Perfect. Now I like the way that the card is looking now and that large face of the product. Okay, so the other thing you'll notice, I haven't mentioned it yet, is I have a pair of headphones. I like the idea. What I'm trying to achieve is the idea of the audio player with the headphones sort of swerving above. I've got a special little tool. I don't know what it was from. I found it in a shop secondhand. I think it might be for displaying jewelry or something, but I've used it. As you can see, it's got some kind of wires and it'll be easily photoshopped out. And have the headphones realistically hovering above in the shot. I'll just have to clean that up, so that would be quite good. So let's take one more shot. And again, I'm liking everything. We've got the backup photo of the one with the darker screen, but I'm going to composite the two. The headphones look good and nice and evenly balanced in the shot, I think. And I've got nice soft shadows on either side of the product. So I think we've done a pretty good job. Now the other thing that you might remember from when I showed you the product, it does have a screen of sorts. Although I said it's a screenless device, it does have these big chunky graphics on there. Obviously in a dark environment like this with a flash, none of that's going to be visible, even if you can see it to the naked eye. So as you can see now, maybe you can just see it slightly, it's a small envelope showing on the screen, and I want to capture that somehow, but obviously I'm going to have to do that without the lights on. So let's find another way. First thing I'd need to do is turn off the lights. There we go, the lights are turned off. So we're going to have to do a long exposure and then superimpose the envelope carefully on top of the image to get it to look realistic. I'm currently on 125 shutter speed at f8, but now that we're not using lights, instead of changing the aperture, what I'm going to need to do is change the time or the shutter speed. So let's bring it down to, I'm going to make a guess now of, it's quite a dark room, possibly, let's try 8 seconds. Now, of course, an 8-second exposure will mean that I need to use the hand trigger because any shaking of the camera we want to avoid. So let's use the remote release to do the 8-second exposure. So there we are, you can see the envelope on the screen, and let's try 8-second exposure. Like that. There we go. Looking at the screen and zooming in a little bit, I would say slightly on the bright side. As you can see, the 8-second exposure was way too much, so we need to bring the time down to make it not as bright in the exposure. Let's try that again. I'm going to try 5 seconds now. Still way too much, so we need to do less time and try and get it better. This time I'll try 2.5-second exposure. Like that. There we go. Now we have a nice ghost image of an envelope. that we can use to superimpose on top of the other image. That's looking perfect. Just for fun, I'm going to try making it slightly less, 2 seconds. There we go. That envelope's looking slightly less overblown, and it's definitely usable on the machine. So now I've achieved what I wanted to achieve. I've got a nice clean product shot. So as a bonus, I thought, well, what if you've only got one speedlight? How could you do the same shot? Let's give it a go. Okay, so what I've done now is I've moved the speedlight from the side, brought it around in front, so it's on top of the camera. So now I've got the video. So now I've got the speedlight, I've turned off this one and I've moved the other one from the side to directly in front. And as you can see, it's now located directly above the camera, like so, facing straight on, with the light straight above, the speed light on the same settings, shooting down on the product. Remember the other rule, the width of the softbox is roughly, the ideal position is the same width as distance. So the same distance there is the same width there. Those create the ideal conditions for the light. So now we're shooting with one light, not two. I've kept everything else the same in terms of the shutter speed, the power of the light, and the distance. But now I've just moved it from the side to the front. Let's see how that looks. And of course, I've left the light at f9.125 from what I had before when I had increased the aperture a bit. Let's see how that looks. There we go. So we can see with one light, it's a slightly different effect, but in terms of a well-lit shot, it's not as interesting, but it's certainly clean and it's certainly doable. In terms of contrast, there's a lot better contrast. It's not as bright. I could try going down one aperture and see what happens. Again, it's doable, it's passable, it's nothing exciting. I think I definitely prefer the two light shot. Okay, so we tried the one light. It's certainly not as interesting. I think there's a lot more character. Shooting things with side light, crossing over each other in an even way. So one of the major features of the Yoto machine is the fact that you buy your books on these card format. I had an idea, since I've got so many cards, is to maybe have a few cards sprinkling down in the background, coming down. So for that, we're going to be wanting to toss the cards in the air and photograph them in motion as they're flying around. One of the first obvious ways you might think is, well, let's have some cards here and have them drop down. But I've seen some YouTube videos, and the best way is to actually toss things rather than drop things. So to do things like that. And that's what we're going to do now. So because we're going to be shooting nothing with cards flying in the air, we're going to need to set the focus to manual so that nothing changes in terms of the cards going like that. We've got a nice aperture of 8, so that we've got a broad area of focus in which the cards are going to go flying. So now I'm set to manual focus with both lights on this time. And there's a test. So I've not practiced this, I have no idea, but the idea is to put a bunch of cards on here and then toss them in the air, and then hopefully they'll tumble, and then we'll catch them in the air. We just keep repeating. Hopefully it'll work out nicely. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so even though I thought it was going to be a bad idea to drop them, I'm going to try that instead. Probably get a bit more control. I've put a chessboard just for interest's sake so that I can drop them so I'm not damaging the paper. Obviously we don't want to be damaging the paper unnecessarily. Okay, so I've raised everything up, kept the camera on autofocus, manual focus, and let's try again. One of the things that did seem to work well is for me when I flicked the card that way, so that they kind of span around. Let's try that. Okay, I think we've got enough. Let's put it all together in Photoshop and see what the final result is. Okay, well, that was the end of that episode. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. And I look forward to seeing you on the next show. Don't forget to subscribe if you like the show, share this with friends, and more importantly, don't forget to tell your local politician. See you next time.